Welcome to Westminster and Max Sherman's relaunch of his book. I was just telling him that it was first published in 2020 and really, well, it came out in 21, right around the time the pandemic started. And a lot of us, including myself, in senior living, were asking ourselves, is this the senior living we signed up for? Because the pandemic was kind of miserable. And Max's book really validated for me what we've been doing in senior living for the last 10, 15 years, 25 years for me, is really working. It's worth it. So I appreciate your book, and I haven't told you that before, but it's absolutely the truth. Congratulations and good luck with your relaunch. I'm going to turn it over to Debbie.
Thank you.
And with Alzheimer's Texas.
That's it. Thank you very much. If I need to move this mic, Leslie, just holler. I'm the executive officer at Alzheimer's Texas, and that life began about 20 years ago, 21 years ago. But before then, I was very active in higher education. And so it would not surprise anyone to know that I followed Dean Sherman around lots of places over the years. The Capitol, Governor Mark White's office, Committee of Governing Boards for Boards of Regents, and I was always thrilled to be with him. We fought some of the most interesting battles, didn't win them all, but never gave up. And then related to that was when I became active with Alzheimer's Texas, and we decided to make an effort to get some funding for Alzheimer's research in Texas. Several states have modest research initiatives, and Texas had none. So several of us got our heads together, and with leaders like Max, and we got sort of a small amount of funding. But we sponsored many conferences, statewide conferences. We had volunteers, we had researchers, we had basic scientists, and that's when, although I had known Jean Ellis socially, and as the beautiful wife on the arm of the handsome senator, I then began a relationship with her as a very skilled businesswoman, meeting planner at the Thompson Business Center on campus. We had many meetings at Thompson for many years. So my life has woven back into the path of Jean Ellis and Max. And once we had the opportunity at Alzheimer's Texas to take on an important caregiving program that has universal appeal, that's easily delivered, that's relatable, that's understandable, Dean Sherman's book came to me, and I said, this is the project we want, for a variety of reasons. And if you've read the book, you know why. And if you haven't read the book and you want a copy, we'll make one available to you. If you'll see the lady in the pink sweater at the back of the room, before you leave, just give her your name and your room number, and we'll make sure that a copy of the book is delivered to you. Alzheimer's Texas has been in business since 1982. We are one of the longest surviving Alzheimer's support organizations in the state of Texas. We have hundreds of volunteers, and as Chuck said, when he rethought career things when he was dealing with COVID, we have rethought our entire delivery system of services since COVID. And it was hard because we always considered ourselves a high-touch organization. We like to see people and hold hands and make sure we're delivering the message and the help. And we have gone to almost 100% virtual on all of our presentations. The beauty of this is that now all of our educational systems are on the front page of our website. Some of you, I know, are regular visitors on our bi-monthly educational sessions. We have the services of a full professor at UT Austin in the Hicks College of Social Work who directs all of our programming. That was the next step we took, was we decided that we wanted the brightest, skilled, licensed credentialed professionals to help us deliver information to families and caregivers and persons who are in the early stages of the disease. So on our homepage, txalc.org, there are dozens and dozens of presentations. The slide deck and the YouTube channel will guide you through these learning sessions. We also mentor and help organize support groups all over Central Texas. We have 40 support groups a month that meet sometimes weekly, sometimes once a month. But we have kept the support groups going, and then we have taken the lead in the organization and support of respite. Most of our respites are delivered by 100% volunteers at churches, synagogues, and activity centers, and they're drop-off, usually one morning a week, 3 or 4 hours a day, for caregivers, Max, to get a manicure, pay some bills, get a haircut, drop off your library books, whatever it is you need to do. Everything we do is at no charge. One of our long-standing board members, D.K. Reynolds, whose father-in-law Dick Reynolds lived here for many, many years at Westminster, and we visited him here often. D.K., whenever someone will say, well, I think you should charge for what you do, and D.K. would always say, well, why do you think I give my time and my money? I don't want anybody to pay anything. So we have a board that says, no matter what we do, whether we give away books, whether we put on a seminar, whether we run a support group, there's never any charges for any service. One of the most important things that we have offered for as long as I can remember is a 24/7 live answer helpline. And although in the evenings you will be connected to an operator, your call will be returned and you are in contact with a licensed clinical social worker. And as many phone calls as you need to work through whatever issue it is, that person, this young woman, the honors graduate of UT Austin, is available to help you. So social worker, online learning, slide decks, virtual sessions, 24/7 helpline. And the end of that story is that we could not do what we do without the help and the generosity of the residents of Westminster, the staff of Westminster, everybody on staff, from the people who cut the grass to the man who runs the show. Westminster has been our partner for many, many, many years. And we always say to donors, prospective donors, what's raised here stays here. There are no six-figure salaries at Alzheimer's Texas, and we no golden parachutes. We have a sterling record of returning about 92 cents of every dollar into the community and programs, and we can do it because of Westminster. So we're very proud of our relationship with this organization. It has lasted, it predated my association with Alzheimer's Texas. So our gratitude goes to the people in this room and those that came before you. We are actively engaged in caregiving support and research. And we have been the lone voice in Texas for research funding for the last 12 or 15 years. And our most recent appropriation, Max, was about $10 million with carryover authority, so we don't have to spend, they don't have to spend it all. 100% of the money goes to 9 medical schools in the state of Texas. I wish I could tell you that a cure was around the corner, that there's a pill on the way, that something that you've read about on the internet, you probably you read something almost every day that's going to cure Alzheimer's or fix Alzheimer's, and it could be red wine or blueberries or exercise or eat this or don't eat this, whatever. I wish I knew why there has been virtually no progress in pharmaceuticals for Alzheimer's disease. The last time a drug was approved by the FDA in broad consumption and broad use for Alzheimer's was when John Ashcroft was Attorney General of the United States, if that tells you anything. So as we participate with the research consortium in the January 25 symposium, and I'll make sure everybody here at Westminster knows about it. We're bringing in a friend and a marvelous physician, Dr. Ron Peterson from the Mayo Clinic. He's a very distinguished researcher, but he most noted for being President Reagan's physician from diagnosis to death, and then he attended also President H.W. Bush. So we just secured Dr. Peterson's services the other day, and he said, well, what do you want me to talk about? And I said, well, for all of us normal people that don't speak your language, I want to know, and I want other people to know, why the brain is so complicated, why so much money has been thrown at this problem of such magnitude and such challenge to families and people with the disease, and we never seem to turn the corner. So come to Texas and give us Brain Architecture 101 and lead us down the steps to tell us why brilliant men and women like you and those you work with, not just in the US but all over the world, have made nothing remarkable in the way of progress. And he said, well, that's a tall order, but I've got several months to prepare, so I'll do it. So the yin and yang of that story is that in my lifetime it never may happen, that we have the silver bullet or there's a lot of bioengineering things, brain zapping and all kinds of things they're trying to do with the bioengineering types to see if they can make some headway. And until we can make headway, Alzheimer's and related dementias, Lewy bodies and all the others, they're going to have the same impact on lives 10 or 15 years from now as they have today and as they had 15 or 20 years ago. And for that reason, self-managed care is one of the most powerful tools in dealing with Alzheimer's. And then I also add in self-managed caregiving. And that's where people like Dean Max Sherman come in, because through his very fertile mind of great ideas that he's had his entire life, and his emotional connection with people, which has always been recognized, he had a way of putting into words the caregiving piece of this disease that may go on for a long time. We don't know. And so it was serendipitous that we came together again at this point in our lives. I live just 3 or 4 minutes away from Westminster, and have had this opportunity to help Max relaunch this book. We've had a lot of great press recognition. We have a wonderful PR firm. Westminster has been very generous with their help to help all of this get a launch again, so that this book is fresh, a new audience is receiving it, and I hope you enjoy hearing him read and tell his story as much as I have over the years. I never get tired of it. Thank you, Max. It's our honor to be here with you today.
Debbie, thank you very much. It's an honor for me, and a lot of stories we can tell, but if we do, we would keep you here the next week. So she's given a tremendous amount to her life, to public service. Let me do 3 thank yous at the beginning, just very quickly. My family is here, and the heart and soul of Releasing the Butterfly. My wife, Jean Alice, is sitting over here in the chair. And then you have my daughter, Holly, our son, Lynn, and 2 very special friends, Meredith Hall and Monique Guzman, who has been Jean Alice's caregiver for almost 10 years now, and they're very much family, very, very much. And Chuck Borston, the people here at Westminster, we've been here almost 13 years, and I put together some prepared remarks, which I'll share, but it's been an unbelievable one, and what Debbie just outlined from the very beginning, when we were still using our apartment as a condominium and traveling around the world, we participated in Alzheimer's fundraising here at Westminster. So long before it really hit us in the face, we were very much involved because of the relationship between Alzheimer's Texas and Westminster, and that's been extremely important. So I want to be sure to put those thank yous out. Let me just share some prepared remarks so that Chuck mentioned when the book came out. I thought it might be helpful to maybe give you an idea of the evolution of releasing the butterfly. And it actually starts when Gene Ellis and I moved to Austin permanently. We achieved our goal of staying in our home that we built in 1983 for as long as possible. When we were both out of our 70s, into our 70s, we moved into a wonderful apartment in the newly built Windsor building at Westminster Manor almost 13 years ago. It was never my intention to write a memoir. The story started as therapy, with me as the patient and also the therapist. We met every night, the two of us, me and me and me and me, and we talked to ourselves about the trauma of separation and the trauma of Alzheimer's. At first, it was a play with fictional characters, George and Emily, from Thornton Wilder's play, Our Town. I was not able to talk about the real Gene Ellis and me. Therapy sessions were recorded, scene after scene, night after night, and a 3-act play morphed into a 5-act play. 2 years later, it morphed again, this time into a fictional novel told by a fictional Emily, Gene Ellis, all in her voice. I called it One Hell of a Woman. It was a tribute to our life together. And here's how she started telling the story. So this is in a woman's voice telling the story, just an introduction. My 14-year Alzheimer's journey began with a simple concern. It survived the tsunami. It now continues along an uncharted, vast wilderness river. I have a canoe and 2 sets of oars. George, my lover, rows with me. I was concerned about forgetting and not remembering, to getting lost while taking the granddaughters to school, to giving up my own car. Our canoe was a senior living apartment in the life care community, just in case dementia migrated to Alzheimer's. The tsunami hit one night when George looked into my face and saw a ferocious lion. We now live apart. I am in 1115 in the memory unit on the first floor. George is in our independent living apartment, 007 on the 3rd floor. But we still rode together. We fell in love in the shadow of the Armstrong Browning Library on the campus of Baylor University. Elizabeth Barrett Browning laid the foundation for our life together in Sonnet 43 when she asked, "How do I love thee?" And then she answered it by saying, "You must count the ways that you love." And count we did for over 60 years. So many ways, so much love. But sadly, Miss Browning did not prepare us to know how to love as we trod through the shoddy, slushy world of Alzheimer's. In the bleak house of Alzheimer's, love is fragile and often on the brink of losing its power. If one is not careful, everything can become medical, pharmaceutical, clinical, legal, agonizing, suffocating, both to the beloved with Alzheimer's and to the lover caregiver. How do I explain Alzheimer's? This is still in her voice. To me, it is like Carl Sandburg's poem Fall. The fall comes on little cat feet. It sits looking over harbor and city on silent haunches, and then it moves on. Dementia creeps in on little cat feet as it sits on its silent haunches, waiting to pounce on you first with early stage Alzheimer's before it overwhelms you with a tidal wave after tidal wave of a catastrophic tsunami. It does not move on. I can no longer see the Golden Gate Bridge. The first tidal wave is at 3 o'clock in the morning. I wake up and silently slip out of bed. George is snoring. I sneak out of the apartment to go somewhere I desperately need to be. Nighttime building security notices me at the security entry and exit to the complex. I am confused and disoriented. I do not know where I am or why I am there. I cannot answer his gentle questions. He takes me by the hand and leads me back to 3007. I'm so happy to see George. I give him a big hug. I take his hand, insisting, "Oh, let's go to bed." And so we snuggle up and we drift off to sleep. That's how she started. Several friends who read all or parts of what I had written encouraged me to put it into a book that might be helpful to others facing or fearing a similar fate. And the result is Reaching the Butterfly, which Alzheimer's is relaunching and helping to relaunch as we speak. And I must point out that any proceeds of the book actually go for one of Jean Alice's loves, sacred music. There's a chair named for her at Austin Presbyterian Seminary, so any proceeds go to Austin Presbyterian Seminary. But to give you an idea of how convoluted this journey has been, here's a chapter that did not make it into the book. And it's called Zelda and Emily. Somewhere deep within, the two females in my life were terrified. I'm deeply in love with both of them. Zelda is petite. Most of the time, her warm body snuggles up against my left leg. She will shift from side to side to get closer and then flick her long, silky, soft black hair onto my chest. Often, I fall asleep only to be awakened by a slow, deep, sounding breath. As I turn to pull her closer, I caress the nape of her neck, and then her shoulder, and then her back. I can feel her eyes. My heart melts as I turn to stare into two languid black pearls, looking deep into my eye without one blink. Zelda is my roommate for the last 11 months. She is a 7-year-old Shih Tzu, the mother of 22 puppies, a 10-pound, lion-faced Tibetan Buddhist. Emily is tall and statuesque. Most of the time, she stretches her long, beautiful body diagonally across the eggshell yellow cover of her bed. She will motion for me to come to lie beside her in that sly and mischievous way she has of just patting the spot next to her. I slide up close and cautiously take her hand, snuggling as close as possible to her warm body. As she relaxes, she turns to put her head in the curve of my neck and shoulder. We don't talk. We just breathe slowly, and we feel two bodies blending into one. We doze. Emily is my wife of 55 years, the girl and woman with whom I have been in love for 65 years. She lives alone in apartment 1115 on the first floor, and I live alone in apartment 3007 on the third floor. The two females in my life are also goddesses. Zelda is my bodhisattva. Each morning she comes to sit in my lap and look deeply into my eyes. There's no word, there's no movement. It's very spiritual. Emily is beautiful. She smiles. She winks at me, wiggles her nose to tease me, reaches out to hold my hand, gives me 2 kisses on the lips. We look into each other's eyes. I say, I love you. She looks deeply into my eyes and says, I love you too. It's spiritual. The two females in my life are possessed by demons. Zelda by lightning and thunderstorms. Emily by Alzheimer's. Just what Debbie just said. I cannot quiet the storms, nor can I eradicate or cure Alzheimer's. And then there's one other brief one, which is literally a story when we were together. Several years ago, when our son began his recovery from alcoholism, Jean Alice and I each had a copy of Alcoholics Anonymous, 24 hours a day. Each morning, we would take turns reading the statement of the day and then the meditation of the day. And recently, I picked up a copy and now start my day reading the page of the day. The morning I had set aside to organize my thoughts for surviving in the tunnel of Alzheimer's, I accidentally read from Jean Alice's book. She had marked with a green marker this sentence: all your life is a preparation for some good to be accomplished when God knows that you are ready for it. After reading that, it prompted me to look at my horoscope for the day, and it was a quotation by Leo Tolstoy. And that Tolstoy read, each day of life has its own kind of love. So let me return to those first horrific nights when I was the patient and the therapist. I tell the therapist, Jean Alice and I are ready to share our stories as we have found a lot of light and love in the tunnel of Alzheimer's. We're convinced that God would approve. It is our hope and prayer that our journey with Alzheimer's will prove to be helpful to others on that journey. And this was written long before we came to this point. Just this morning, as an essential caregiver, I sat with Jeannie, holding her hand, telling stories. She dozed, she laughed, she rolled those wonderful hazel eyes. We were making love. We were writing scene 1 of Act 5. And here is one, and I'm getting just toward the end of my remarks, but here's one unintended and never expected consequence of reading The Butterfly. And I have permission to use his name. Charlie McCormick, who's a friend and president of Schreiner University down in Kerrville, sent me these 2 messages. My mother passed away several years ago after struggling with Lewy body's dementia, very similar to Alzheimer's disease. I remember her turning to my father in just the same way Jean Alice challenged you. They also shared some sweet moments of delight. I look forward to sharing the book with him. He's the father caregiver. So some time later, he writes me a second time. He said, I did want to share with you something that inspired my father to do, to write. He loved your book, but since he spent his career as an oil jobber in Scurry County, he never considered himself a writer. Apparently, you convinced him to give it a try. On Monday afternoon, he sent me this poem that he had prepared about going to the doctor early in the day with my sister Cindy. I hope you enjoy it. And here I just want to remind you that this is a caregiver writing the poem several years after his beloved person had already passed away. So it's retrospective in a way. It's called A Visit to the Doctor. I had an appointment. My daughter drove me. I pushed back, but not hard. Is it time that when I leave town, I need a driver? We drove for about 45 minutes and sat in silence until it was time to go in. The lady at the desk in the clinic looked into these tired, old eyes and did not look at me again. She addressed all questions and communications to my daughter. She pushed out a paper to be signed. I was determined to prove that I was not senile. I grabbed a pen. There were 2 small buckets of pens. I took from the one on the left. The woman said condescendingly, "Those are used and perhaps contaminated. The ones on the right have been cleaned and sanitized." When the doctor came in, he said I had my mask on upside down. Disappointed at how I had come across at the clinic, my driver asked permission to come in with me to see the doctor. I was a little put out. She was taking notes and asking questions. And before we left, I knew it was good that she was there. Now listen to his last line in that poem. The driver's name was either Skippy or was it Cindy? That was that poem, a little short one called Senility. I can see it. It looks like fog. I can smell it, repugnant. I can taste it, bitter. I can feel it, cold. I can hear it like a rushing river. I sidestepped it today. I will dodge it tomorrow, and the next day, and the next, and the day after that. Maybe the angels will come to carry me away before it covers me. If not, I will struggle and fight to get free. And those are poems written by a caregiver several years after his wife had passed away. And I'll conclude by sharing with you the shortest and my favorite chapter in the book. And it was my great awakening to what it's like in being a caregiver. And you may notice that I'm reading from the large print one, and the other one is too small for my 89-year-old eyes, so I'm going to read this one. It's very short. The volcano that simmered deep within Jean Ellis's mind erupted one morning in, of all places, the elevator at Westminster. We were heading out to her weekly Pilates session to join 5 friends. I made the breakfast, laid out her worked out clothes, and nudged her. Let's be on time. I held her hand as we hurried to the elevator. She was smiling. Oh, don't worry, she said. They won't start without me. At the elevator, as the elevator reached the garage floor where our Volkswagen was parked, she backed away to the far side of the elevator, crouched with her shoulders hunched back, looked me straight in the eye, and then exploded. I am not going to that place again. I'm certain she did not know what that place was, just as she had no idea where the club or the school were. Her powerfully ingrained instinct was for her to decide whether to go or not to go somewhere. I was out of line to think that I was in charge. She had always jealously guarded her right to be in charge of decisions affecting her. That was the key to her identity. I had failed to appreciate the fact on that morning, alone in the elevator with Jeannie. I now realized to her I was a drill sergeant, incessantly breathing orders. Get in line. You're out of step. Hurry up. You're late. Do this, do that. It wasn't just about leaving the house and being on time for appointments. I was making all the decisions. I chose the TV shows we watched. I chose the food we ate. I chose the clothes she wore. I did the driving. I read the map and determined the route, something she had always done. I selected the paragraph in the newspaper for us to read together and then read it to her. I suggested it was time to take the dog for a walk. I urged her to play the piano, and my ultimate insult was to say, let's be on time. Inside her, the Jeannie I had always known was shouting, I am Jeannie. Don't treat me like a thing. I am Jeannie. I am a strong, confident woman. This paragraph is hard. I was stealing Jeannie, little Jeannie from Jeannie, nibble by nibble, in the midst of the storm. I forgot that I was her partner, not her parent. Instead of making every decision for her, I should have asked her what she wanted. Would you prefer chocolate or strawberry ice cream? What do you want to watch tonight? A comedy or a spy show? Should we sing hymns or songs from musicals? Are you about ready to go to bed? Most of the time she would say, oh, you just decide. But I had missed the headline. She wanted to be asked. She wanted to be asked. No. She needed to be asked. She wanted to be treated like she was someone, like Jeannie, and how she has to defend herself or risk totally losing her identity and autonomy. All of this is obvious to me now, but in the moment, and this is important for caregivers, and this is the end, I was furious. I exploded with my own profusion of pent-up frustration that morning. Don't ever say that again. We're going to keep exercising, working puzzles, reading books, seeing movies, doing everything possible to stay as long as we're alive. I didn't realize it then, but I was grieving, just as all caregivers mourn the lives that they had once had and the person they loved who were no longer there. Alzheimer's had marked them indelibly. And then I close that with the saying, I wanted my Jeannie back. So that really is what I intended to share with you about the book, how it got there. And in Alzheimer's, Texas, has helped to put it on the table and call it to the attention of people who might not ever know it. And one thing that Debbie and I both know is there was a couple that neither one of us had known at the time who read the book, and you keep seeing like this. Charlie's father picked it up and never had been a writer. This couple had had two sisters that had been in dementia, Alzheimer's. And all of a sudden they said how important music was, and they picked up that piece. So one piece will speak to one person, another to another. It's not a handy book that covers everything. It's a book that's in progress, and every caregiver will see it differently. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Debbie. Thank you at Westminster. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Max.
She says if anybody has a question, you're going to have to take them, so I'd be glad to try to spot any.
I'm very thankful I've been able to do, and I've been through experience with two people here. My mother, who died September 20th, 2000 here at Westminster, she had it. And also Jeannie Barrier, who died May 15th, 2022. He was a late case of Alzheimer's, but my mother was an early one. It went fast. But during this pandemic, I found a positive way to react and get the music to YouTube. And I visited some MAX. And also, it got to our 1890. So I'm glad I found a positive way to react to a bad situation while still helping. And my caregiver, Connie Castillo, she supplied me, and she's now my part-time.
John, I think most people won't hear you, but John's telling. I think it's just, John is telling about his own story and his own family, and I think most of us probably could do that, but thank you very much. I know you and I have talked about it. It really is a very special situation.
Right, and remember,
And the other thing, I think the care that we get, that you get here is that in life care services, you know, we moved from, both our kids had to make the decision because I shattered a femur and had to go to the hospital for several weeks. But Westminster helped to move seamlessly from independent living into health care and then into memory care. And that was all handled while I was still in the hospital. So, and I will have to admit, and Debbie, it was the reluctance of caregivers to ever acknowledge the need for other help, and that's where Alzheimer's, Texas is so important. I will have to say, if I hadn't shattered the femur, most all of us who around here are probably type A people. We're fixers. We've always fixed things. And I probably might have delayed for a much longer time to think we could fix it. And so it probably happened because of an accident and a shattered femur. That decision was made that I might have put off long before we should have made it. It proved to be a blessing. And we're now, I'll tell one last thing, and that is that Monique and Jean Alice and I most every weekday morning and afternoon. We meet all around the campus here. When the weather's good, we're outside. If not, we meet over in the bar in the morning when no one else is there, just us, and we're not there to invite, we're just there. But we'll meet over there, we'll meet on the fourth floor of the Laurel, or the whatever that other building is over there. And then we meet out in the courtyard of both of them. And then in the afternoon, we meet up in my little apartment, because I've moved out of the big apartment to an efficiency. So life goes on, and you wouldn't know it, but when her head is up like that, she's hearing every word. When she's over here, she might be asleep, but people think, well, she's not. And I'll say, can I get a kiss? And boy, that head pops up, and I get 2 kisses, and I've learned how to just accept it. And then when she crosses her left leg over her right one, it's a little bit sexual, because it's really a signal. And Monique and I both understand those signals, and then if I'm talking far away, I've got this high raspy voice. Well, she'll pop her head up, almost say, get with it, talk straight so I can hear you, you know. But we've got a whole bunch of signals that we continue to experience, so.
Maybe she thinks we've talked too long. She's up.
Anybody else have one anywhere? Well, we're glad if you want to come around individually, and Debbie can tell you more about Alzheimer's if you have any of those special programs, but it's a tremendous resource, and I want to thank Westminster for introducing us to the relationship that's come together here from the very first time we came, in the very first fundraiser Westminster had about 13 years ago. They had a deal where I came in, I was in the police car, and Jean Alice was still very active and brought our check that we were giving to Alzheimer's Texas. And so Westminster, from the very beginning, has planted seeds for the relationship that we're celebrating today. So thank you all.
Thank you all very much.